What's up, guys? Abide, men's discipleship coming at you. We've been talking about men and dads raising their kids. We got last episode we was talking with Glenn about raising daughters, and for those guys out there that are raising daughters, we're on this boat with you. You will hit turbulent waters. It's going to come over the bow of the boat sometimes.
Man.
We spent some time on that, and I thought about that, Josh. The reason we spent some time on that is because, it is what it is. Girls they require maintenance.
Bro, I'm going to tell you what. To know that they are high maintenance, more work, but there is a reward from having a daughter. We have sons, but there's something about having a daughter. It's a little bit more work, but the reward's amazing.
It's a lot of work.
So actually, one of our best friends,
I love my daughter.
Oh yeah, we have one of our best friends here, Dr. John, and for years, Dr. John has been giving me grief about having a daughter.
God bless y'all.
He's got 2 sons, and he's been giving me grief for years. And so, as much as the grief is there and the troubles are there, there's something special about it. But
John, I'm going to say something real quick. I've said this from my pulpit. I believe it doesn't say anything in the Bible about this, but I believe that there is going to be an upper tier for guys who had daughters, and we're going to look down on the guys that just had sons and be like, "I'm sorry, this is a club you can't be in."
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it to relieve the stress.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. But
so we've been friends with Dr. John for almost 20 years.
Why you call him doctor?
He's a dentist.
John's fine.
Yeah,
John's fine.
But we have been friends, and actually the thing that connected us was we're blood brothers now, but. Deer hunting. That's the thing that connected us, and then we started doing life together. And you have 2 sons. If you want to introduce your family, and then we'll.
Yep, I got 2 boys. Wesley, who's my oldest, who is 21. Thomas is my youngest. He's 20. My wife and I planned that, having our kids 12 months apart.
Smart, bro.
Yeah. It was
2 in diapers.
But they're both in college. We were really smart and got them to go to Clemson University, which is only 45 minutes from our house. So my wife can be there in the neighborhood very often.
And so that you can stay happy in the house.
That's right.
And so to know the journey that they're on, we literally just were talking about this. Wesley is in D.C. right now looking at law schools.
Yep. So he's a rising senior. History major, and he has aspirations to being a lawyer.
And then Thomas is going to run the world. So
he will. He'll probably. He's in D.C. because he's seeing his future job. He's probably going to be president of the United States someday.
For sure.
So let's talk about age too. Me and John are in that 40s. Yeah. Me and Josh are 46, right?
Thank you for including me in the 40s. I appreciate it.
No, I'm sorry. We're just trying to give guys an idea out there because. We're talking about different phases of fatherhood and life. How old are you, John?
I'm 40, Trey.
Yeah. No, you're not.
No, I'm 54.
So
I'm a
got
little bit older.
You got about 10 years on us.
But
that's why you see me wearing glasses all the time.
Oh man, I hate that somebody has to wear glasses.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, that's been the great part of this relationship is that not only have I been a student to you, you've been teaching me, right? Like on hunting for years. You also have been steps ahead of me in fathering. And so we've looked at you for a lot of things. And I say but you and Trey kind of are at the same stage and age of kids. I'm the one that I'm getting to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, do this, don't do this. And the expression we say all the time, only a fool has to learn through an experience. If we can today say something that, hey, this is what we experienced, this is what we've seen, this is what helped, this is what hurt. That's what we're here for. That's what brothers are for.
Absolutely.
That's what this podcast is for.
Yeah, it's Scripture talks about, and I don't have the exact terminology here, but Scripture talks about a foolish man turns away wise advice.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and we're not saying that we have it all figured out, but what we're doing is we're showing you, hey, here's 10,000 ways not to do it.
Yeah.
We have hit some potholes. We have knocked the steering column out of things. We have, we have done some things but we've also figured from there how to do it right and get back on track. And what we're wanting to do is me and John's got kids about the same age, and Josh is coming up. But there's guys right now that are looking at toddlers, that are looking at 2 and 3 year olds, that are looking at little boys that are knee high, and we got to figure this stuff out. We want you to get started right. And
one of the things that actually I heard years ago that has affected me and how I think is that oftentimes you look at your kid, and we joke about this, that sometimes you might feel like that cute little kid is never going to amount to anything. You look back in the car seat, whatever, and I one time looked back, and I really thought, I think my son, God's got plans for his life, and I just remember looking back, and he was licking the bottom of his crock. And I was like, maybe not, maybe. But if we're not careful, we'll look at our little toddlers, we'll look at those little kids that, they're struggling in life in areas. It's hard to believe that one day those sons and daughters, but this is for sons that we're talking about today, that they're the next doctors, they're the next lawyers, they're the next pilots. They're the ones that they're going to keep people alive. Like, they're leading the world. They're the leaders of the world.
They'll run the nation.
And they're going to run the nation. And it's hard to believe that. And if you don't see your kid, flaws, failures, and all, if you don't see them now, even as a baby, and believe the truth that God has great plans and that my son's going to accomplish something, one of the main texts that I wanted to even set and lay a foundation for is that in 1 Samuel chapter 16, the prophet is going to anoint a king, and he goes to Jesse's house and he says, hey, I want all your sons, and he brings all his sons except his son David. And when he doesn't bring David, this is the truth, is he didn't believe a king lived in his house. He didn't believe that he was raising a king to do great things, that God had great plans for his life. And this is just my opinion, my thoughts, that for him leaving his son David in the shepherd's field, out in the pasture, he either was saying this, that I don't believe it, or he's saying, I do believe that he has plans for him, so I'm going to protect him, right? Like, I'm scared because I love him so much, I want to cherish him, I want to value him, I want to protect him. And this is where you and I have had some conversations recently and for years, is that if we're not careful as fathers, we don't see the potential and the plans that God has, so we don't push them into those hard places. So either you don't see it and believe it, and you're not going to walk and push them in it, or you might see it, so I better protect them, and both ways is hindering and hurting. That's something you've done with your sons, is you've pushed them.
Yeah, absolutely. My wife and I were talking about this just the other day, that, as a mother, she's always wanting to be the nurturer and the protector and the bubble wrap our kids. And as they've gotten older, and now they're becoming men, I've had to have a conversation like, honey, we have to let them fail. We have to give them the chance.
How did that go?
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
We usually can find some common ground, a compromise.
But that's tough, though. It's tough to and we said this last time, dads that are watching, don't think that everybody's going to think that you're the cool guy all the time. You are not going to be the popular guy all the time.
And they got plenty of friends. They don't need another friend. They need a dad.
They need leaders. They need people who will go against the grain, that will be a trailblazer, who's not going the same path everybody else is. Because, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. But, and here's the problem that I think we deal with a lot of time. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but man, I think we're living in a day and a culture to where dads aren't leading, dads are following. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. I said this the other day on a post of Facebook. It said, when I was growing up, I'm 46, so let's go back, 30 years ago. When I was growing up and I was still up under my mom and dad and we was going to church. When you went to church on Sunday, the people that didn't go to church on Sunday were who?
They're terrible sinners.
They're sinners.
They're dying.
You looked around and when you was going home and there were people out in their yard, you knew those were sinners, Christians went where?
Church.
Christians went to church. Nowadays, the priority is not church. Yeah. Nowadays, there's so many excuses why you don't go to church, why you don't lead your family to church, why the reverence and the importance of being, there's so many excuses. And here's the deal. We got ball tournaments, and I know that's going to hair up a lot of people. But, dads are not leading their families when they're jumping in the van or they're jumping in the truck and they're going, they do ball tournaments on Father's Day and Mother's Day now. Dude, who's leading the family in something like that. I think we're chasing after the kids when we do stuff like that. But there's you know.
So this whole
and I know that's going to make. I know that's just going to rub people the wrong way, but it is what it is. We can't always be popular.
The truth is offensive. We can say it with as much love, but the truth is offensive. All right, so here's where I want to say. So this whole podcast is about abiding, because we know that if you don't abide well with God, that being the very thing that you want to be, the man of God, that's being a husband, a father, career, like it's going to happen in abiding and knowing Him. And when we make knowing God, abiding with God optional, it will make it unnecessary for our kids.
Absolutely.
And so if you make church optional, it'll make it unnecessary for their kids. Like what you champion and what you go, this is value, they'll value. But what you just half butt commit to, I promise you, they're not even committed to. And history shows that.
And they'll have a good reason not to, because they'll be able to believe you didn't.
And so hard things. How many times have we all of us have had to have our kids, we're going to church because it's a hard thing. Again, going back to if Jesse believed he had a king, then, and I love him, I want to make him happy, I want to protect him. If the kid doesn't want to go to church, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, my kid's at the age he doesn't like going to church. As a dentist, I want to use this one.
That's funny.
When your kid says they don't want to brush your teeth, like
you're gonna brush your teeth.
I know you don't want to. Like
right.
It's not fun. Yeah, but I know. But if we're really looking at it, sometimes as parents, sometimes we're saying, I'd rather them have healthy teeth than a soul that is saved, eternal, right? Like there's this place, and so
yeah. But you got some bad breath. So you're gonna brush your teeth.
You forgot about flossing too, by the way.
Oh yeah,
my
appreciate
plug
that.
for the dental community.
And so there's this truth of Jesse, either he didn't believe it, so he didn't walk in it. And this is where I want to make sure that we hear today. True love requires action.
Yeah, it does.
And as a father, it's going to take this truth of moving with action, not passive, being so active and intentional.
Intentional. I like
and
that
so
word.
that he moves into either saying, I don't believe he's a king, so let's leave the ruddy boy out in the shepherd field. I don't believe he has greatness. I don't believe God's going to use him to lead people. I don't believe God's going to use him to do great things. So either that, he leaves him in the field, or I love him so much I'm going to protect him. And that's what's got us here today, that we have boys who shave. They're not men. Mm-hmm. They're boys who shave, and they can't adult. We've never been in a stage and a place that you've said it, Trey, but there's also never been a time that men are stepping into a friend role more than a father role. And I know this is something you've seen. And
they want to be popular. Dads want to be popular.
Yeah.
You know?
That's when my kids were little, Disney Channel was all the shows, and I had to make them stop watching it because I realized that every time I'd watch one of these shows and they would show a family, it would be, the kids are the smart ones. The mother was like this overachiever, and the dad was kind of a boob. He was, he was clumsy. And it was this role, and I started to notice like my kids are treating me like I'm an idiot, and it's because of what they're seeing on TV.
Yeah.
So it was like that, and so I think fathers, especially in this day and age in our culture, are treated kind of like you're not that important. Oh, yeah. You're kind of mom's the one that is going to save the day, and the dad is just kind of a comic relief, and so I strongly fought against that perception with my boys.
You actually told me that years and years ago as a youth pastor. You told me that, and I was like, my kids are still little. They're not watching that much TV. I started paying attention when we started turning them on. A little older they got. Mm-hmm. The kids ran the house in those TV shows.
Yeah,
the kids are in charge, and the parents are idiots. And so there is this place now that I will protect. And I was not the fan favorite in my house. When I'd go, shut that TV off.
Right.
Turn that off. But it's because I believe there was greatness for my kids. And we're using fathers to sons, that if there's ever been a time for us to step in that role of walking in it, it's now. And so we're going to talk about and unpack a little bit what this is. One of the things that I would say that it was so unaffirming. Could you imagine that the prophet's here to anoint someone to do a work, and you're not even called to the runnings? Right. That your father doesn't believe in you enough to go, I believe put my son in the runnings. Maybe God could use him, right? Like, that means this affirming is so important. And what studies have shown is that the greatest role of anybody besides God in your life is the father. The father affirming, the father leading. That's why it's called daddy issues. You don't hear mommy issues. It's called daddy issues because that's what makes or breaks a kid as an adult. And so stepping in that role, the verse that comes to mind is Matthew 3:17, and it's when Jesus is being baptized. And as he's being baptized, the heavens open and God speaks out loud and he says, "This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased." And to really think about how God was affirming using the idea of protection, God said, "My son, I'm so pleased with him and I have plans for his life and this is what I'm going to use my son for." And remember what it was for. It was to die. Mm-hmm. It was to war, to fight an enemy, and to die for the sins of the world, knowing he's victorious. There's pain in his future. He didn't save him from the pain. When he affirmed him, he spoke this truth of going, "This is my son, I'm well pleased." And I would love to challenge everybody that's listening. What does it sound like when you call your son? Like out loud, are you affirming or are we always breaking down? Because the thing that I want us to talk about for a few minutes is, I think some guys know what their role is and what they're doing is damaging more than building up.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about this? I think we got a lot of dads out there that are good at complimenting their kids, and we need to on all kind of things. But I think there's two different categories. I think when it comes to, if our kid does good at a sport or if our kid does good at maybe even making a good grade or something, good job, buddy. We're there to high five them. We're there to give them, but what if the kid goes down to the altar at church? Or what if we see our kid worshiping? Or what if we see our kid go out, our son go out of the way and do a kind thing or go on a mission trip or do something like that? Are we affirming in them that's the kind of stuff that matters? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great that you're, an all-star at baseball. It's great that you can hit home runs. It's great. Those things are great, and I'm glad you're doing that. But at the same time, there are things we have to make sure that we keep the main thing the main thing. Mm-hmm. And if we don't affirm that, we'll start prioritizing things in our kids' lives that are not the things that they need to focus on and say, this is the main thing that I've got to do in my life. Yeah. How you treat your mom, how you treat your sister, are you praying? If you ever walk by your room and your kid is reading their Bible, don't interrupt them. But the next day you need to walk up to them and put your arms around them and be like, dude, I'm so proud of you. Yeah. Those are the kind of things that we need to pour back into them and say, I want to feed this fire. I want to fuel this fire, because those are the things, whether you like it or not, heaven and earth will pass away, but the word of God will stand forever. And I know I'm on the sports kick here, but I read the word of God. I don't read anything about sports. Yeah. When we put so much emphasis, and that's great. Listen, that's great.
That's one way that some parents connect with their kids, and that's a great way.
But God's got to be number one, man.
Yeah. And I will say this about the way I'd love to say it for everybody listening. Again, if abiding and knowing God is life, there's nothing greater than knowing God. That's this place where we sit with him and the voice of our Father speaks into our life. We come into his presence with these fears, with these concerns, with this brokenness. We come into his presence, and what changes our life is the word of God, the voice of God over our life. Okay, then when we get up from that place, I'm going to say to fathers, then how much more is your role to not just be a earthly, this is the Heavenly Father speaking through you when you speak truth. Yep. When you take the word and you speak truth in that, if we are abiding and hearing his voice and then not taking his voice of the truth of his word, they're left with only our truth. And I'm not enough. Like we were just talking about that. I'm not enough. My son needs the voice of the Father, and I just get to be the one in a small window of time that I get to pour that into his life. And so I want to say something about the voice of the Father. I'm pretty hard on my son. My wife doesn't think it's fair how much my daughter gets away with just about everything, but my son, nothing slides. I mean, I am hard on him. And this just happened this year that I called Luke. He was back in his room.
How old's Luke?
Luke just turned 14 last week, he's 13 years old, and I called him. And when I called his name, I saw his face when he's kind of walking down the hallway and comes in the kitchen, and he's like, yeah, man. And just the way his face, I was like, what's wrong with you? I'm thinking you're having a bad day. He goes, nothing. And I'm like, oh, no, what's wrong? And he goes, Dad, when you call my name, I've either not done something or you need me to do something. So which one is it? And when he said that, dude, I broke. Because that means the voice that he hears the Father, he hears always condemnation and you're not enough. And you want to know why? Because when my son has failed in an area, guess who's responsible? I take all the blame. I take ownership. And I go, that's on me. I got to do better. And I push and I push and I push. And I've really pushed my son. But here's what I know. If I'm not stepping in the role of pushing and affirming, when he hears my voice, he's going to go, and I think there's some men that they have this visual of who God is and what his voice is, and it's always, you suck and you're not enough.
I've
do better, try harder.
I've said this before when it comes, I'm going to throw it on me because it affects, I think it affects everybody. We've all got people in our life that are going to let us know when we do something wrong, or even if we don't ask. There's people in your life that are they're going to criticize you. They're going to, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not going to make everybody happy. Growing a church, there have been multiple people who have come against me, who have talked junk about me. They'll get on social media and say stuff about me.
Only half of it was true.
And there'll be other pastors. There'll be people in ministry. And, growing up, we lived in a culture, it was kind of, when we was coming up, it was almost like the church was almost divided a little bit. It was like older generation, younger generation. And the younger generation were getting a little hair lip because the older guys were always just criticizing. And here's where I'm at with that. I don't mind your constructive criticism if I do something wrong. But if I do something right, applaud. Let me know I did something right. Because
so true.
That shows leadership to me. If I've done something wrong, pull me aside and say, you really screwed up here. But if I did something right, Bo, I'm proud of you. You did awesome.
What was it that you said? How many the attaboys? What did you say?
So it takes 1,000 attaboys to undo one I told you so.
Yeah.
So when you say that, it makes me realize for every time that I criticize, for every time I go, you were not enough, am I doing the 1,000? But let me show you, man. I'm so proud of you. I'm so
and that's got to be intentional.
And I'm going to say this again. You've always been a step ahead, well, hundreds of steps ahead in a lot of ways, but in this one, Father, steps ahead. Is that not something that's hard to stay on repeat? Because my fear is always, they're not enough, and I feel less than, so it's always on the forefront of my mind.
I mean, 100%. I think the role of a father is, at least my opinion, I want my boys to be better men than I ever was.
Oh, yeah.
So the push is to get them to do more, to not make the mistakes that I made, to try and save them some of the pain that you're going through, but at the same time, call them out when they're not doing things right. But you fall in that trap of, of always being kind of the, getting against them, correcting them when they're wrong, but we don't do a good enough job sometimes of affirming them when they do good, or pointing out the things that they did right in the midst of whatever they messed up on.
And there's some seasons it's hard to find it.
Oh yeah,
there's some middle school boys, dude.
Yeah, you just got to make stuff up.
You got to look hard.
You just got to make stuff up.
Got to make stuff up.
Hey, you walked good today. You put your shirt on, that a boy.
So I'm going to tell you. I want to maybe a dad.
You didn't take a bath, but yeah.
Maybe a dad can identify to this. All right. So that was last year that happened, and my son said that to me. But 3 years ago, one day, my son was just always. John had said, wait till they get a little older. Wait till they, you'd always said, bro, you go from the coolest guy in the world to you're an idiot and you know what you're talking about. I felt.
You got there a little quicker than most of us.
Yeah, I could feel it happening. And again, I've really been hard on my son because what you just said. I failed as a son. I failed in my middle school days, my high school, most of my college. I was a cycle of defeat. That was my life. And I wanted better for my son, so I was going to be hard on him. And so I've really pushed and I've pushed and I've pushed. And
Did you think he was protecting? Is that what
I did?
What did
I thought I was saving him from and I could fix it. But I just remember 3 years ago, it's just off. And I finally had enough of like, what's your deal, man? So we're in the truck and I said, man, what's up? Like, and he said, I'm good. I don't want to say it. And I said, do you think you're going to trouble? Say what's on your mind, man. Say what's on your mind. And Luke looked at me and he said, Dad, I know you love me because I'm your son, but I don't think you like me.
That was a swift kick to the crotch, wasn't it?
And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, you're kind of harsh on me. And I see how you talk with your friends and you're always laughing with them. I see how you are, but man, you're harsh on me and hard on me.
Did you start crying?
Maybe. Dude.
You did.
I'm about to cry.
You started crying.
When he told me that, it brought it into light because it's true. You're not my friend. You're my son. But you don't know what? He's my best friend.
Yeah.
Like y'all are some of my best friends. He's my best friend.
Yeah.
I'm a pastor. I make disciples. He's my best disciple. Like he's my guy. And dude, our relationship that fast changed because I realized, oh my goodness, I was the one that was going to push you so hard, but we all have had hunting dogs. I was breaking him. I was pushing him so hard like you do a hunting dog. You can break a dog. And I was breaking
I had a good
him.
hunting dog one time, remember?
Shut up.
We'll talk about that
You
later.
gave me a broke dog. But I was pushing him so hard. I was pushing him so
Such
hard
a good story.
that I broke him. And I had to, and I hope that any man can ever, whatever stage you're in, it just so happened to me that he was starting middle school. I don't care if they're high school, college, they're adults with kids. I don't care what stage and age you're at.
Yep.
There is always this place of returning to the Father,
Yep.
sitting with him and going, boy, I've made a mess of this. You've given me this, and I've made a mess of it. The God that we serve, the God that we abide, the God that we know, that we love and we long to serve, he can restore.
Quick.
And man, he took in my failure, I'm not enough, and he took something with my son that if I'm not careful, I will start crying. Y'all will definitely start laughing at me. Because, dude, he moved the relationship with my son into something that was just, it warp speeded into deep, hard conversations. It warp speeded to, if y'all remember, 3 years ago, my son said, my son and I did our own hunt. Y'all are my hunting buddies. We got a group of guys we hunt with. They're our hunting buddies, and man, we do life. That's it. Once a year, me and my son go on a hunt. And it made me realize, dude, you're my best friend. I don't want to be the guy that's the voice that you don't want to hear. When Jesus heard his father say, that's my son and I'm well pleased. I want, when our sons hear our voice call their name, that they immediately go into, he loves me and he's for me.
Yep.
And that's hard though.
But here's the deal. It takes, I mean, this, for a lot of people, they might say, well, I can do that. There are a lot of guys out there right now, Josh, who have never heard an affirming word from their father.
That's right.
And now you've got your own kids. So there's some habits you're going to have to break.
Hey guys, we're still with John.
John, we love you.
Love y'all too.
Hey, we're on part 6 and 7 of Raising Kids.
Good content. We couldn't get it all in one. Won't you hit that like and subscribe button? And we got some good information coming your way. Stay with us and we will see you next time.